What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So, in Game 6 of their, I think this is probably the most watched series so far in the playoffs, the most talked about, I think, and that is this series between the Brooklyn Nets and the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, to the Bucks' credit, this series has been a lot more competitive than people thought it would be, though that's mostly due to the fact that the Nets have had injury issues. The Nets are without Kyrie Irving. I think they've been without Kyrie Irving since what was it? Game 3 or game 2? Can't recall which game it was. But they've been without Kyrie Irving for several games now. James Harden had been out in this series with the hamstring injury, but he did come back in game 5. Had an atrocious game 5, but he atoned for that in game 6. But ultimately, Milwaukee won this game by the final score. I believe it was 104-89, and this forces a game 7 at Brooklyn. And in that's an accomplishment for Milwaukee. Um, Khris Middleton had perhaps, if not his best playoff game, one of his best playoff games ever in his career. He had a game high 38 points. I think he had 5 steals. I think he also had 10 rebounds to go along with 5 assists. He shot the ball very, very well. This is the best game that Middleton has had since going back at least to the first round series against the Atlanta Hawks. Giannis Antetokounmpo had 30 points and 17 rebounds. Drew Holiday had 21 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists. But sometimes, looking at the box score could be a little bit misleading. And I'll get to that in a minute. If you look for the Brooklyn Nets, Kevin Durant had 32 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists. Blake Griffin had 12 points and 6 rebounds. Jeff Green, nothing close to his Game 5 performance with 5 points and 6 rebounds. Uh, James Harden had 16 points, 5 rebounds, and 7 assists, and Joe Harris with 9 points. Now, for the majority of this game, or for most of this game, I would say, well, actually, almost all of the game, Milwaukee had a lead and seemed to be in stretches in control of this game. However, once again, I have to say, if we had a better coach, and I say we because I am rooting for Milwaukee, if they had a better coach, if we had a better coach, I can't help but think this series will be over. They wouldn't have blown the lead in Game 5. This game, Milwaukee should have won by something around 20 points. Now I will credit Milwaukee with one thing. Milwaukee has done a very good job as of, I think, since games 1 and 2. They've done a very good job, if you want to give them credit for it, of slowing down this high octane Brooklyn Nets offense. Now, is that an aberration in that maybe they're just not performing at their normal capacity? I don't know. But since games 1 and 2, the Brooklyn Nets haven't quite looked like themselves overall. Um, Durant had 32 points, and you're not going to stop Kevin Durant. No one's going to stop Kevin Durant, but you'd rather have Kevin Durant have numbers like this. He shot 15 of 30, which is 50% efficiency, which is good. But you'd rather have Kevin Durant take 30 shots to get his 32 points than him getting to the foul line, taking 10, 12 plus free throws, and him teeing off with incredible efficiency as he did in Game 5. You'd rather have him not get to the foul line. You'd rather have him, not destroying you from beyond the arc. Because three pointers add up over time. So you rather have Kevin Durant had a type of game. James Harden had 16. I think he was 5 of 9 from the floor. So that was a much better game that he had overall. But still, James Harden is not quite James Harden yet, and it waits to be seen what type of performance he'll have in Game 7. To me, I think Game 7 is more on James Harden and his legacy, um, because Kevin Durant has had great performances when the Nets have needed it. Uh, him and Kyrie have championships too. I think it's more on James Harden because uh, James Harden has a history, as we all know, of falling short in these type of games, always having bad performances. This is a game that I think could help to somewhat atone for the past if James Harden, in his critical game, comes up with one of those vintage James Harden performances. Waits to be seen. Joe Harris. Joe Harris, if I'm not mistaken, has the fourth highest career 3-point percentage in the history of the NBA. He's one of the great catch and shoot 3-point shooters this league has ever seen. But you would not know that from watching the series. He has been borderline abysmal in this series. Look, when you're a shooter like Joe Harris, you're going to have bad nights. You're going to have bad shooting performances. But Joe Harris has been atrocious um, in this series. But you get the feeling he's due for one of those performances. You know, you just think that. Um, but most of my animus is going to be aimed toward Milwaukee because Milwaukee almost blew this game. Okay, again, they blew Game 5. They almost blew Game 6. But Khris Middleton and a little run toward the end of the game saved the day. I still, for the life of me, don't understand what Brooklyn is doing offensively and defensively. I don't understand what they're doing. Um, Look, I don't understand why they aren't trying to set up more offensive plays for Giannis as far as like cutting to the basket or trying to Giannis make it easier for Giannis offensively. I don't understand when they get Giannis, the ball and he's, in isolation at the top of the key and he does the same thing. If you watch him when he does this, he either loses the ball, falls down, and it winds up a turnover, or he misses the layup, or it never really ends up as a positive possession for Milwaukee. Why was Drew Holiday yakking up 20 something shots yesterday? I have no fucking idea. Drew Holiday had probably, even though he had 20 something points, um, I hate to say this because it sounds silly, but oftentimes Drew Holiday will have a game where you look down at the scoreboard or the box score and it says he had 17 points. He had 20 points, and you're shocked because you're thinking to yourself, how? Because all I've seen this guy do is just miss and brick and brick and brick. I think he went 1 of 10 or 1 of 11 from 3-point range, Drew Holiday. But you get the feeling like sometimes Drew Holiday's points are not as impactful. And I know that sounds crazy because points are points, but when Giannis gets points, when Khris Middleton scores, he has those games. They seem to be impactful points. It's like Drew's come when the Bucks might be up by like 15, or You're up by 9. But when it's crunch time, it's like Drew Holiday just disappears and shit. At least in this series. First round series, Drew Holiday looked like such a vast improvement over Eric Bledsoe. This series, you're like, well, he's supposed to be, but whatever. Defensively, um, this single coverage of Kevin Durant, they got away with it this time. But even with Durant not having his best game, he still scored 32 points. Why they have Drew Holiday, who's 6'3", guarding Durant, who's at least 6'11", made absolutely no fucking sense whatsoever. No sense whatsoever. You might as well put Muggsy Bogues on Michael Jordan or something, or Muggsy Bogues on Isaiah Thomas, and Isaiah's gonna fucking scorch him for 45. Like it makes no sense. Coach Mike Budenholzer, if the Bucks lose this series, he needs to be fired immediately. As soon as the horn sounds in the game 7, if the Bucks lose, he needs to be emailed his walking paper. Get this horrible, man. Where's Bobby Portis? Where is Bobby Portis in this series? Yes, he's not a great defender by the numbers, but he's an energy guy. I remember Bobby Portis coming in, and he's athletic. He was blocking shots, and then Mike Budenholzer's answer for that made no sense whatsoever, and there's something deeper going on. When asked about why he's not playing Bobby Portis, he said as well because of spacing issues. So we feel like Bobby's not suited for uh, this series right now. That makes no sense because Bobby Portis this season, unless I misread the numbers, Bobby Portis was shooting 47% from the floor during the season from three. So what are you talking about? There's something else going on, and I hate these coaches. Okay, Mike Malone's another one. I hate these coaches that have these personal beefs with players, and as a result, they want to punish them. But then when you're doing that, like Mike Malone had his issues with Michael Porter Jr., so therefore he wasn't playing him last year, and that type of shit is what can cost you a series. The way the Bucks are playing, they've been very fortunate that Brooklyn has not been firing on all cylinders. Game 7, I just have this feeling that if Giannis isn't playing his brand of basketball, if Khris Middleton doesn't give you at least 25, if Drew Holiday doesn't give you an efficient 25 or 20, and if some of these other guys don't step up, Forbes, in the first round, Forbes, you look like goddamn Dana Barros. Where are you in this series? You've disappeared totally. Uh, Pat Connaughton had his moments. He was pretty much, inefficient or non-existent in this past 2 games. Where are you? Where are some of these guys that this whole year the Milwaukee Bucks fans have seen produce at a high level? Will there be a Bobby Portis sighting in Game 7? So these are some of the things that if you're a Milwaukee Bucks fan, um, you're looking for. I got a feeling that Brooklyn is going to come out really revved up to go, and Milwaukee's going to have to match their energy. But I have this fear, I have this sinking suspicion that Mike Budenholzer's strategies for the game are going to fuck this team up. And, you know, I think that he's gone. If they lose this game 7, he's gone. I wouldn't be surprised if he's fired the next day after this game. But we'll see. Maybe Milwaukee can pull off the unthinkable. But tell me what you guys think.